This is the Polygon Siskiu TE. It's a brand new e-mountain bike for 2023, and it sits in Polygon's e-bike lineup alongside the existing Collosus NE, which is formerly known as the Mt Bromo. The Siskiu TE features a much simpler frame and suspension design and a value-oriented parts package that brings the price down even further. And that makes this an appealing package for the budget-conscious rider who's looking to get their first proper e-mountain bike. So is the Siskiu TE up to the task? We've been testing this bike for the past few weeks to find out. Now, the Polygon Siskiu TE is designed as an all-round e-mountain bike. It features 150mm travel fork and 140mm of rear travel via a single pivot suspension design. It's rolling on 29-inch wheels, though a flip chip in the lower shock mount allows you to set it up as a mullet with a 27.5-inch rear wheel. It's all built around a hydroformed alloy frame and a Shimano drive system. On the model that we've been testing, it gets the new Shimano EP801 motor and a 630 watt-hour battery. The cheaper model then comes with a Shimano EP6 motor and a 504 watt-hour battery. Geometry on the Polygon Siskiu TE isn't too far different from the Colossus. We've got a 65-degree head angle and a 77-degree effective seat tube angle, and on the large size that we've been testing, a 485mm reach. All frame sizes get the same 445mm rear center length and a relatively low 39mm BB drop. There are only two models in the Polygon Siskiu TE lineup for 2023. And prices will start at around $5,500 for the Siskiu T6E. The bike that we've been testing is the Siskiu T7E, and current retail price on this is a bit over $6,500. This bike gets a Suntour Aeon 35 fork and a Tri-Air 2 shock. There's a Shimano SLX 1x12 drivetrain and SRAM Kodar brakes with 203mm rotors front and rear. We've got Shimano hubs, Entity alloy rims, and 2.6-inch wide Schwalbe Hansdampf tyres. Confirmed weight for our Polygon Siskiu T7E test bike is 24.66 kilos. Now, as usual, that's without pedals, but it does include inner tubes, which is how this bike comes supplied out of the box. Thankfully, the rims are taped tubeless from the factory, though you will need to bring your own valves and sealant in order to set up the wheels tubeless. I'll start with what we like about the Polygon Siskiu TE. And really, this is a lot of bike for the money. Polygon has done well to tick a lot of the boxes that many brands would struggle to include anywhere near this price point. The 630 watt-hour battery gives a decent amount of range, and most riders should be able to achieve around 1,500 meters of elevation gain by using some of the lower powered settings. On that note, the new Shimano EP801 motor is excellent. Peak power output is increased over the EP8 motor, and the clacking noise from the internal freewheel has also reduced. It isn't quite as punchy as an equivalent Bosch motor, but it is quieter and it is still plenty responsive. Shimano has also added new tuning options via the eTube app. There's a new fine-tune mode which gives you 5 trail settings in between the standard Eco and Boost, and that gives you more options for tuning the motor's output depending on the trail conditions. As for the rest of the bike, well, it's been pretty solid all the way through testing. The brakes are powerful, the shifting is crisp and reliable, and the wheels have been nice and sturdy. We're yet to get any punctures from the tough Schwalbe tyre casings, and thanks to their big 2.6-inch width, you can run them at pretty low pressures in order to maximise compliance and traction. It's also good to see a 170mm travel dropper post, and while it's nothing glamorous, it does work well. I've also been impressed by the general ride quality of the Polygon Siskiu TE. The geometry and handling is spot on, and we were pleasantly surprised at its ability to charge pretty hard on some steep and rough trails, despite only having 140mm of travel. Now, if you're exclusively riding really steep downhill trails, sure, you could use more travel and a slacker head angle, but for most of the popular riding spots around Australia, the Siskiu TE feels like it has more than enough. It's particularly adept on fast descending trails with loads of turns, as it's great fun tipping in railing berms and ruts. Now, we have been less than impressed by the Suntour suspension on the Siskiu TE. Both the fork and shock lack sensitivity, and that means overall grip, comfort and stability suffers as a result. This is especially the case with the Aeon 35 fork, which suffers from a sticky feel and excessively slow rebound damping. Even in the quickest setting, the fork isn't able to recover fast enough in order to keep it in the sweet spot at the top of the travel. More feedback is transmitted from the trail up to the contact points, resulting in noticeable fatigue on longer rides. It's not such a big deal on smoother and flowier trails, but it is a problem when things get fast and rough, where the tyres can struggle to maintain consistent contact with the ground. The fork has also suffered from some pretty serious bushing knock, which was noisy and annoying while riding. We also had an issue with the headset, and this features a pretty cheap and flimsy steering limiter that relies on the crown race securing to the fork crown with a grub screw. During a fairly innocuous crash that spun the handlebars around, the grub screw dislodged and the crown race bent, causing the headset bearings to bind up pretty badly. Thankfully, Bikes Online sent us out a replacement lower headset assembly and a standard crown race, which rectified the problem. We still think that Polygon needs to go back to the drawing board with this headset design though, or ditch the steering limiter altogether, as it's likely to cause issues for Siskiu TE owners. Now, if this were our bike, aside from fitting a standard crown race, we'd look at upgrading the suspension and particularly the fork. Now, that would cost a fair amount of money, but given how cheap this bike is compared to an equivalent Specialized Levo or a Trek Rail, you'd likely still be ahead even with a fork upgrade. Now, you wouldn't have to do that if Polygon introduced a higher spec option, and we certainly think there's room for a Siskiu T8E. This is a really capable and fun e-bike to ride, and some higher end suspension would certainly elevate its performance to the next level. Now, many of you may be wondering how the new Siskiu TE compares to the Collosus NE, and it's an interesting question because while both bikes share many similarities, there are also some notable differences. We put a detailed comparison between the Siskiu T7E and the Collosus N8E in the full review, which is now live over at flowmountainbike.com. If you're keen to check it out, just click the link in the video description below. Now, if you've got any questions for us about this bike, make sure you drop those into the comment section and we'll do our best to answer them for you. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this video and we'll see you next time. Tooroo!